good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for waiting off, listening. I tell you, I've learned more today than I can't even believe it to tell you. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be in this room. How about yourself? You didn't hear any of that?
No.
You did pretty good. Thank you.
And good night.
What you're seeing here is what got me started on the path with Mexico City. My name is David Josephs. Yes?
You say, I could barely hear Gary, and I know what he was saying.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. My start on the path was an observation that these two pieces of evidence from Mexico, one of them being his tourist visa, I'm going to have to turn because I want to look as well, and the other being the hotel registry that they got from Mexico. And what bothered me about it was the fact that the Lee, Harvey Oswald, where I could understand it being a mistake on the visa. If you look at the visa, he signs Lee H. Oswald, but it makes no sense for it hitting the hotel registry. When he gets there, he would sign his name like normal if he was there. So I kind of wanted to take a look and see what else I might be able to learn. Went to the Lopez report, and what does it say? The Warren Commission correctly established that Oswald traveled to Mexico City. And I thought that's quite a challenge. The Warren Commission got something right. I didn't think so. I really didn't think so, but I'd like to go take a look. So I started to go take a look, and what I found was I'd like to look at accomplishing these points. Hoover, I believe, was aware of the deception as he was supporting creating evidence for this journey. The majority of this evidence was created by a very close asset in Mexico with the FBI. I see Oswald going elsewhere, up through Austin to Dallas, and we have some evidence about that I'll share. And recently, some recent releases from the documents show that Little Mill 9 and Little Mill 7, as well as the LI Envoy reports, tend to support what I was saying. So, in January of 1964, Hoover scribbled on the bottom of this note, "I can't forget CIA withholding the French espionage activities in USA, nor the false story Ari Oswald's trip to Mexico City, only to mention two instances of their double dealing." I thought, now, okay, if he knows in January that this didn't happen, I've just been studying this since October. He's been not doing this at all, yes. So this all started for him on the 10th. These are the two famous memos that came out of the CIA. One of them went to State Department, FBI, and the Navy. The other one went to the Mexico City station. And it basically created what Mr. Simkich helps us understand happens, and others who have looked down there and happened. But I wasn't going to get too deep into what happened there. I wanted to stay with what did the FBI do to get him there and get him home, and if he didn't really do this, what else was going on? Why would they cover? Would Oswald being an FBI asset be a good reason to cover? Well, if he really was where I thought he was, doing his job, then yeah, you're going to have to cover it up. This is the January 22nd executive session where they're told that Oswald is a paid $200 a month informant. Granted, this is now a week after his little note that he's written, and well into the months into the investigation into Mexico. Just so you know, Hoover, in 1940, with help from Albert Burrell, started the SIS and was in charge of all Western Hemisphere intelligence, other than the military and the Navy. Now that ended in 45, but I doubt he ended his connections. So when we wanted to know, was Oswald really there, he asked some of his agents and some of his assets. And he asked them on November, and probably at the end of October, after he received that note from Hosty saying that all this stuff is going on. So he's got reports on the 4th, 6th, and the 8th, over 20 people, 20 assets, even his friend at the Gobernacion, and they're all saying, no, there's no Oswald. We don't hear of Oswald. see Oswald. We can't tell you anything about Oswald. Okay. On the 22nd, we got a note from Clark Anderson saying, yeah, we can't find anything either other than what the CIA says. But I want you to notice that they don't talk about the 27th. There's nothing about September 27th, a particular note. Now, the very next day, our man Helms comes by and says, we've got transcripts, we've got this, we've got that, we've got this. Except Hoover checked again. And concerning Oswald, no one has ever indicated they recognize him at all visiting a Soviet or Cuban embassy either. So where is he? Where was he? What makes sense? He wasn't in Mexico. Internally at the CIA, they kind of know the same thing. Okay? No evidence Oswald visit. It's similar, blank against all Soviet photographs. They just don't have him. And Ambassador Mann makes his prophetic statement about there being no context and no awareness of Oswald anywhere but at these embassies and at the hotel.
It says photos show no evidence Oswald visit, right?
Photos show no evidence.
Do they
Correct.
say anything in that particular one? I remember it, but about
Also checking
about the audio.
manifest fails
The
to show
manifest
that he
claims,
came in.
that's
Yeah.
correct. And
But no audio?
we haven't gotten to L.I. Envoy yet.
Okay.
Trust.
I'm going to jump back real quick, though, because this is September 17th in New Orleans,
Okay.
when our man is supposed to have gotten a Mexican tourist visa.
Mm-hmm.
I read the interviews of the people who were there that day, and nobody remembers Oswald. What's worse is we have the Norths and the Georges, not George, but the North, he's there in the morning, about 9:30. He gets the men and his wife at the bottom are there at about 11, and they get theirs. Godet shows up in the afternoon, and he's alone.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Oswald get the two numbers in between.
Mm-hmm.
Just so happens. Coincidence. The first leg of the trip, and I'm sure you've all heard, from New Orleans to Houston, the Warren Report evidence source is Marina. Since Marina left 2 days ago, she knows that he took a bus. So that's what they do. She also says that he'd probably be pretty cheap and want to buy 3 or 4 part ticket altogether because it's less expensive than buying them every time you stop somewhere. Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So, okay. When we start looking, and the FBI looks at going from New Orleans all the way to Laredo, there are 2 buses that leave. Okay, one of them stops in Houston, very, very, very late, and one of them stops in Houston the next morning. Neither one of these. This is December the 10th. December the 16th, we have new information. We have a 12:20 bus that leaves and gets him to Houston at 10:50. More than enough time to get this connection that he has to get. Notice that they're not like investigating the situation, but figuring out what works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're trying to figure out what works. I threw out a slide that I got rid of because I wasn't 100% sure. But what bothered me is this. First of all, December 16th and the number of the exhibit doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. One. And 2, there's a report on September 21st of 1964 that mentions this exactly. Why would they go back and ask bring anything in September after they already had the information in December?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the verbiage of it, and it really does look like they took this the September report and just simply slapped December 16th date on it and said, "Oh, we found him a bus to Houston." He gets to Houston, and for some reason, in the story of the Warren Commission report, they add this phone call in from Mrs. Twyford.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this testimony that says that Oswald, or as Oswald, called her locally before 10 o'clock in the evening in Houston. She didn't hear the clicks. She didn't think. They talked about flying to Mexico and all kinds of FPCC revelations. And I don't really know why they put that in there. other than to reinforce him being in Houston, because he had to be in Houston, because he had to be. McFarland, another interesting character in this story, claims they changed buses in Houston as well, and doesn't realize that this boy Oswald is on the bus until 6 o'clock the following morning, if you believe it. So, if there's no evidence, he went, and it really doesn't look like he was ever in Mexico, where'd all the evidence come from? Because there's a lot of evidence. And this is one thing that surprised me. As I say, CIS at Luis Echeverria, everyone knew. But when I kept finding this other name, and this other name's fingerprints all over the evidence, I was wondering why nobody ever mentioned him. Raphael Hernandez Ochoa was the subdirector, Central Immigration Sector. He was T2. He was an FBI asset. He worked well with Clark Anderson. Matter of fact, inside the FBI, it wasn't a big deal. His name was on many, many documents. Down here it says a page going from Clark Anderson outside the FBI. Get rid of his name. We don't want him to know as a source. Mr. Ochoa provided the tourist thesis. Check, finished, done. However realistic or not you are, but what he did in an unaccompanied pouch, sent the originals to the FBI, said, please make copies and send me back my originals. Because what I'm doing is basically illegal. You're not supposed to do that.
Louder, please.
Sorry. Okay, so let's get into some of the quick details. He's at Laredo, crossing over into Nuevo Laredo, and the FBI says he takes the Flecha Rojas bus out of Monterey at 3:30 because his Aussie girls are on it. They remember him. The problem is he's leaving Nuevo, the border, and it's about a 3.5 to 4 hour ride to Monterey. The border leaves at 2. The other bus leaves at 3:30. As badly as they want him on this bus, he can't make it to these buses. It just physically doesn't work. Now, worse yet is we have members of the Flecha Rojas terminals who tell us an amazing story that the passenger lists and the duplicate lists are borrowed within hours of the assassination by unidentified Mexican government staff. And they're borrowed from Mexico, Monterey, and the border. And they're just gone. So all we're left with is this list, which is a typed list of who got on in Monterey, because that's how it works. You have Greyhound in the United States, and then down there is Del Norte, or Continental, and Flecha Rojas. So who got out to the Flecha Rojas? None of the Aussie girls. Bowen didn't. McFarland didn't. None of the people who are his
Busmates.
his busmates, his incrimination, his testimony are on the same bus. They're not there with him because he really wasn't there to begin with. Right. Now, as we said, they did ask Miss Mumford. She was one of the 2 Australian girls. And she said that she left September evening, the 26th, on a Transporte del Norte bus, which makes sense. I mean, that's the bus that she took. That's the bus that arrives the following morning. The following morning. Oswald has to get to the Cuban embassy by the 27th to be able to make a phone call at the consulate at 10:33. These are the things. I mean, they have to line up. So basically here, he shows up, takes his information. This is the signature on the hotel. Provides the 9 photocopies of the hotel registers, just in case you knew. And each day, what is said is that the manager of the hotel writes the names of the guests who stay over. All the guests are written in script. Every word on those pages are written in script, except for Lee Harvey. day after day after day. Now,
And that's written in what?
A different
block
hand.
letter?
Block letter?
Just plain flat block letter. This really got me is that, okay, Mr. O.H. Lee has traveled to Mexico. We understand that. That's what they told them they were going to do. At the end of every month, they create something called an FM11, which recaps everybody who comes over the border. And they alphabetize it. Mr. Lee. Mr. Oswald Lee Harvey seems to be between M and O, and not L. So who's ever creating these lists is not using his name, and they're using some other information they have about him. This is the FM11. So if the man's name is Lee, Harvard all the way Lee, just like the other guys, he should just be alphabetized under Lee. Just kind of simple little things. Ochoa is also the source, as I say, of that. Pardon? Mr. Ochoa is also the source of that information. The border is where it starts to get very, very ugly, and we see a fine division of responsibilities. It looks to me, from what I did, that the CIA and State Department had one story, the FBI and INS had another story. And Harvey Cash of State Department was a big reason for this. He had to explain everything that was going on, and for some reason, very early in the morning, the Assistant Commissioner of Customs is told, call the people on the border. Something went up. He calls the people. Mexico says, I can't talk to you. You're going to have to talk to your own people. We have an investigation going. Harvey Cash says, okay, I'll explain everything to you. This is typed up from the FM11 that our man Ochoa decided to add a few things to, take a few things from, put in some notes, just provide whatever was necessary. So here we have on the 22nd of September, Lee Harvey Oswald entering. But that never was the case. Okay. He's leaving on the 3rd by an automobile. This is at least what the Mexican information has. Is it correct? Is it a bell? Is it right? Don't really know, to be honest. But months will go by. This report on the right is mid-February. Water. Water in there? Not so much. So by mid-February, they're still arguing about who's what, where, and what's going on. Ochoa also provides the copies of the passenger manifest for his return back home. And this has to be one of the most blatant things that we found. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but we will find this Transporte Frontera bus was completely rewritten, redone in front of the people at the travel agency by a man named Arturo Bosch. And Mr. Bosch simply fixed everything. Luckily, Hoover caught it and changed it. I want to go back real quick to the 23rd and 24th, though, in the United States. And in the United States, we know what our man Lee Harvey was doing, working with the FPCC, with Guy Bannister. He was arranging fake fights with his friend. Ruth Hayne was picking up Marina, and Oswald disappears. Disappears completely. Thank goodness for Ruth Hayne. After that fact, as I say, there are no records. There is nothing that says he took a bus anywhere. Matter of fact, there is records that a check was cashed back on the 25th, much closer to his apartment. Whether it was him or someone else, again, don't know. I understand there are no signatures on the back of that check. What I do understand, though, is that in Austin, Lee Danley is 100% sure that she met with Oswald in Austin at the SSS offices with a friend of his.
SSS stands for what?
We're
Selective
State
Service?
Selective Service Headquarters. This has to do with that strange multi-number
State Selective
state service, fake and non-fake card of hers. She claimed to have found 15 different Harvey Oswalds, but that the one that she was speaking with that day, and that the one her friend came to see, was the Oswald that showed up on the 22nd. We also have, Stella Norma is a waitress there, and she just basically says on the morning, she thinks now it's the 26th. He milked a cup of coffee for a while and then just left. Either way, he's in Austin. Either way, it's the 26th. And either way, he's on his way up to Odio. Now, to me, this page of information tells me that an FBI asset named Oswald was in Dallas. If Odio is wrong, then Odio is wrong, but it does seem quite a few people who were pigeoned, or rather fingered for being there, ultimately admitted that they were not. And that it's very, very likely that it was R. Lee Harvey Oswald with these two men. There was even a little bit more justification that followed in the days ahead.
Oh, David, that's really interesting. Can you explain that about the whole Janet Leigh thing?
Yeah, she had mentioned the story to her father, to the Father McCann, and mentioned going to see Janet Leigh later that night before these people came and left. And when I was able to finally look, and other people helped me out finding this information, it turned out, sure enough, Janet Leigh was there, and she performed that night. So rather than thinking whether it was the 26th or the 27th, or I believe 100%, we can call it the 26th.
Which means what? It's impossible for him to be in both places, right?
He's on a bus on his way to Mexico.
Yeah.
But he's not. No, he's not.
He's a multi-dimensional
This adds to me just a little bit more support for Odio. This is HSCA reviewing what she said. I found the little discourse on the top right interesting in that Hosty and Odom did interview her on December 18th, said they would be back, and the next time she spoke was her testimony in July. So, and from what I remember, they gave her two tiny little lines and basically said, in the Warren Commission report, couldn't be. He was somewhere else. Get back to now this information, and you start to see that the FBI is using their own kind of creative evidence as their own sources, which is really great. Yeah. So they call this a baggage list. They call it a passenger list. This is the trip that they claim was stolen from all the locations. But somehow we have this. That statement in the middle of the page is the Warren Commission report conclusion. That despite the fact that none of these buses will work, that they can't get him there on time, that's the bus he took. So, okay. Whatever you say. He had to get there for this. This is a little different. This is a report from the CIA that I think really tells us what happened on the 27th, and came to the conclusion that a man, somewhat Spanish sounding, started calling. We have 3 calls about Odessa in fluent Spanish. We have a call at 10:33. We have another call, 10:37, and finally one at 12 and change. The real story was, oh wait, there's that guy.
Yeah. That's our Oswald.
There's that guy. My point of bringing this up is that a lot happened on the 27th and 28th of September. A lot. At least that's what we're told. These photographs are from the 2nd, 4th, and 15th of October.
And Ann Goodpasture thought that was Oswald.
No, yeah, well, she thought She thought it would cause some problems, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now our man, or our woman, Duran, she basically had two jobs. One, help people with their applications, and two, make sure they're not agents. And if they were thought to be agents, call Ask You, and let's make sure everything's okay. This testimony is amazing. You know, he just went somewhere locally to have the pictures made. And yeah, I think I already explained to him where he could take the photographs. So you told him where to go to get one, right? I don't remember. I don't remember. So as a result of that, the Warren Commission actually said he might have returned to the Cuban embassy with photos that he had brought from the United States. Okay, maybe. An interesting thing about it, though, is a year later, they decided not to show this application with this photograph to Duran. And if you remember Miss Mumford, one of the Australians, they never showed her a picture of Oswald either. But she put him on those buses.
But didn't she have the wrong passport too?
Passport.
Didn't she say that it was a
She had a ticket that allowed her to get off on buses. But
Oswald was supposed to have shown her.
Oh,
Right.
yes,
An
the
old
story.
passport.
Yes,
Right,
he
but
tells
it
the
wasn't.
story. He tells the story of all the stamps in the 1959. I've been to all these places. Well,
Yeah.
you just have a blue. No, that's a. Okay. Again, this simply gives you an idea of some of the locations that LI Envoy was looking after and wanted to hear from, and the fact that we really do have transcriptions that say Oswald is there at the consulate on the 27th. It's at 4 o'clock.
That was an FBI document.
This one?
That was you just showed.
This here is a CIA transcript of the calls from Spanish. I think if you have the whole document, they have the whole thing in Spanish as well. The 28th. Again, just to reconsider, quite a lot of stuff went on the 28th. Matter of fact, a lot of you in this room have written a lot about the 28th and how strange it is because of what was said. It's just a very, very strange day. Okay, the consulate was closed. None of the things that should have happened, and I believe even the CIA admits it. No, maybe not. Let's see. That'll be a little bit later. They're even told now, too, this is the 23rd of November, that this report is coming out from, and that the same suspect was at the embassy on the 4th of October. So they're already gathering information to know where and what, who and why. It just doesn't seem like they want to listen to any of it. Back in Dallas, as I say, if he was at Odeo, which I do believe he was, I happened to give a little more strength and a little bit more weight to some of this testimony that has him practicing shooting that weekend.
Somebody.
Or
Somebody
a
was.
lookalike,
Somebody
yes.
shot.
Somebody
Using
was.
his name.
The little note up here is a little recap from the CIA that says, 1. Complete recheck photographs all visitors to Cuban embassy August through first half November against good press photographs show no evidence Oswald visits. Similar blank against all Soviet embassy photographs from 1 September. Note, only visit we know he made was was Cuban embassy, 28 September, Saturday, on which embassy closed and we had no coverage. Convenient.
So,
Now-
excuse me,
Yes.
what was it? The last picture we showed JFK and another person, what was that all about?
This is actually from the this is the Bell or a Hughes photograph. The man highlighted in the back is Gordon Slack. You have JFK,
Yeah.
Gordon Slack. And Gordon Slack confirmed with Price that he saw him at the driving range, or the shooting range, on Saturday. He also happened to be at the assessment.
They think
at
they
the
saw
parade.
Oswald.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They believe they did. And the story gets very deep. Again, I wrote quite a lot of pages on this, picked up all the holes, made sure holes. It was an amazing shot. All kinds of interesting things.
He kept showing the gun.
Yeah, kept showing it.
He
Showing it. Matter of
paid
fact,
attention.
Gordon there was supposed to zero it in for him and help him out. Problem
I
is,
think clearly someone was there, but I don't think it was
Yeah.
Oswald.
probably not. But I don't know that Oswald was down there in Mexico.
Well, no,
Either
I don't
place,
think
yeah.
it was in Mexico
Either. Here's October 1st, which, from my standpoint, now maybe I'm crazy. Does Kostakov look a little like Oswald? I mean,
Everybody looks like
everybody looks like
Bill
Oswald.
thinks half the room looks like Oswald.
Like everything tastes like chicken, everybody looks like that.
Why I edited this page was because this is the only page Kostakov shows up. And Kostakov shows up because of a question from the Soviet embassy, not anything said from our side. And Ambassador Mann goes bananas. Because he wants to support Let's Go Get Cuba. Yes. So, point again being, stuff happened October 1st. Oh, I threw this in only because I found this very interesting. Did you know that Hoover found out ultimately that Kostakov wasn't Department 13? The files of the Bureau do not contain any information to fully support the statement in paragraph 5 that Kostakov is believed to work for Department 13. This was in September 1964.
So he's going
It's a
bullshit
surprise
on
to me.
Angleton.
Yeah. Okay.
So was that a disinformation story by Angleton? Is that what you
I
said?
think it made more sense to put more ominous connections with Oswald than anything else.
Okay.
And what did we know about Russia, right?
Overt.
Yeah.
He mentions Angleton there. What was that little, on the previous slide, it actually mentions Angleton towards the end. Mr. Angleton's letter, dated June 30th.
Right.
What
In
does
response
that
to
say?
our May 31st letter referring to
Caption terrorists.
Russian terrorists.
Yeah, I think that was Angleton.
Yes, I think he was pushing the
Yeah.
Department 13 terrorist thing.
That's hilarious.
Okay. As I mentioned, 1,500 documents, God knows how many thousands of pages, just to not tell us he wasn't there. Well, Lozano and Alvarado explained that they couldn't understand why Mexican authorities had arrived at the conclusion that they had traveled on this bus. Now we're talking about going back home again.
No evidence of that
And
either.
I left my stuff over there. I wanted to bring it too.
Conditions and Oswald.
This is great.
To the trip.
This, I don't know how many times in the commission you're going to find them admitting that they were wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But that's Hoover going. It's actually a verbatim from a note that Hoover wrote.
Wow.
He didn't take that bus.
Wow.
We can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I'll show you a little bit why that happens. The bottom one there basically just says that they've looked, they checked all the Frontera tickets, they checked everything, and Oswald's not there. Oswald's not there. This on the left is Hoover telling us that we looked at it. We looked at the indentations. We found that, somebody changed November to October, changed the date, changed the line, changed where we're going, changed all kinds of things. And this is the bus that we're going to put him on. This is the FBI mind in perfection. By the way, I'm going to have to do a shout out. A lot of these documents that I couldn't find at Mary Farrell, I find at John Armstrong's Baylor archives. He's got an amazing collection of documents. So, FBI says, okay, he's leaving on Frontera. It's not a 9 a.m. left. They make a mistake. It's actually 1 a.m. And they do the math.
It doesn't matter.
And they realize they can't get him from the border to the TEC in Dallas in time for his appointment on that bus, even though they have the evidence. So they just throw it away. I mean, like, okay, forget it. We don't need.
It's out there somehow.
It's no big deal. Let's come up with something else. So guess who they called? Come on, one guess. Marina Oswald. Who called Marina Oswald but Mr. Liebler?
I was going to say.
And just happens to bring up Mexico. What was Oswald doing before he went to Mexico? And Marina says, I found these tickets. You gotta be kidding me, right? No, it's right there.
You found them right after Priscilla Johnson.
I found the tickets.
So
Down
2
there,
days, the
got 'em.
Dallas police couldn't find them?
There
And
they
retrieve-
found them in a suitcase in a pamphlet.
They were in a
and
TV guide.
Thank you, Priscilla.
It was from Priscilla.
Unreal. We go back now. We have Del Norte. We have Del Norte tickets. Except Del Norte doesn't make passenger lists.
Oh, how convenient.
How convenient. Here's the one we're going to give you, though.
Oh,
Here's
perfect.
And right there, where it says Chihuahua, Wah, 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 that's Oswald.
That's supposed to be Oswald?
13688.
Uh-huh.
Funny.
13688. 13688. Everybody's happy.
Imagine.
Everybody's working. Oswald's making his way home. Except when they ask the woman in charge of the travel agency, she tells them a really interesting story. Rolando Barrios is fired from the travel agency, and he's the guy that did this stuff. We got rid of him because he was just kind of nutty. So he created the original order, which she also says, Order 13688 is blank. It's never been used.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow, this
So,
is good. This is
Ochoa
good.
took a blank thing?
Oops!
Yep.
Okay.
Which exhibit number is that? Do you remember?
This one here?
Yeah, the one at the bottom. That's a good
Most of these are part of 2121.
one. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's a huge one. Yeah, 2121, 18. If you go, I have at Kennedy and King's, there's 5 or 6 articles that have all
Yeah.
footnotes and stuff.
Thanks for plugging my site. I didn't.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you
yeah, good job.
go. Equal time.
Wait, even better. Okay. Our man Hoover again wants to check. He wants to call on. Remember, he got a report on the 8th. Said that Oswald wasn't there. I want to recheck of everybody. Okay, we'll recheck everybody. Let's check all the bus lines leaving Mexico to the border. For Oswald, Heidel, Lee,
Anything.
anything. And we check. Above checks, completely negative for subject under all known aliases. Every bus line. Okay, now there's only 4. Flecha Rojas, Transporte Frontera, Del Norte, and this one called Anahuac. I think I skipped over that because there are some reports that the FBI thought he changed in Monterey and drove down on this Anahuac bus. And then you read their report, and every Anahuac bus manifest has been sent to some god-awful place up in the middle of nowhere in Mexico. Makes very little sense. This is just a really quick recap. I don't want to go into the craziness of the way back, but you have Vandermoors and you have people who work for the Department of Customs and Immigration riding on the bus, telling them that Oswald was there, and it's really very, very important.
David, you left out the punchline. The punchline is what happened to Echeverria. Echeverria did what later on? He became president of Mexico.
He did become president of Mexico. What happened to Ochoa?
And he was one of David Phillips' assets.
Speaking of David Phillips.
Oh, there you go.
See, to me, this is where it all happened. This is where we created Oswald in Mexico. Was this man here arriving? This is October 4th. Goes out and explains to them that Phillips will be arriving on the 7th.
Yeah.
He's going to be in charge of Cuban ops. Okay. Now it dawned on me. When you run an operation like this, don't you write summary reports from time to time about what happened? This is the summary report for September 1963. We had on the 2nd a Russian-speaking female, and someone reported contact with an unidentified Czech woman. The date of this is October 8th. Didn't we do stuff on the 27th and the 28th? Even the Odessa ones that say it's not Oswald.
Not mentioned. Because that's a real document.
Where is it? Exactly. Contemporaneous documents don't seem to be supportive of what happened after the fact.
Right.
That dog didn't bark.
Yeah, not at all.
What about October?
Yeah, that's this one. Mexi 645 reported reported a contact by an English-speaking man with the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. This is now November the 7th. Do they know anything about Oswald by November the 7th? Now, by way of example, this is the July, just a little piece of the July LI Envoy exploitation of information. English-speaking persons, they specifically call out the reason for LI Envoy. It's to review the traffic of English-speaking persons making contact with the Soviet embassies. That's what they're supposed to do. Okay, well, they missed it on the 27th, 28th, I guess. Another thing that came out of the new release was a little description of Ahmad 1, who was a Cuban intelligence officer who was actually at the embassy. And what got me interested about this was the way he described how ASCII should have dealt with Oswald had he really been there. And what he says here is he does know that agents from El Salvador requesting visas always made mention of the name Mauricio. The DCI officers at a consulate interview visa applicants to find out if they're agents. During the process when they were there, when Oswald, or when they claim Oswald was there, he didn't even want to come out of his room. He didn't want to talk to him. Duran didn't want to talk to him. She doesn't remember even going out to get him. It's just this completely off-base, off-center standard operational procedure going on that really shouldn't be that way. Now, we also know, right, the little, maybe I'm wrong about popping that up there, but Oscar did never identify Oswald. He said it wasn't that guy, and Duran did the same thing. So we're back to the only thing that even gives the inkling that he was there is some CIA transcripts that they don't even wrote. They wrote. We also have someone else inside.
The signature cards in Mexico City were
the visa?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are a couple of places where supposedly he signed. Do those signatures match Oswald's signature?
I had a whole, that all of us look at Oswald's signatures forever and a day. Yeah, they kind of match, is all I can say. I mean, I looked probably at 5,000 signatures, and they're all, some of them, if you look at the two signatures on the Cuban application, they don't match. One's the copy, one's the carbon copy. They don't match. They're not close. So, this came out in the recent release. I happened to come across it. Little 9 evidently was known before, but a lot of the things that I had seen were redacted. So
he died, so they released it.
So they is that what, I wasn't really sure. All I know is that when they asked him, there was a note that went out early. It says, "Please request," and that was gone most of the time. Little 9 be queried about his knowledge of Lee Oswald contacts with Cuban and Soviet embassies. Little 9 was one of Ascew's best friends. I mean, they spent a lot of time. He knew what was going on there. Every time he's asked, every time the answer is no, over and over and over again. And Little 7, come on, there's another one.
I know it has. See that?
Yeah, just click on the image. Yeah, now
There you go.
Okay. Little 7, also in the last paragraph, basically says the same thing. Now, it'd be nice if I could find a couple of reports that say, yes, we saw Oswald, but I couldn't find any reports that said, yes, we saw Oswald. And even as Little 9's description of how Duran talks about her interrogation, it's as if, yeah, I got it over on him. I mean, it just didn't ring true, at least for me. So where I was on this was that the Warren Commission correctly established that Oswald had not traveled to Mexico. That's the way I choose to let others like me.